Hello? Who's that? Whoa! Water!
Sup, everyone. Welcome to another night of Ghost Chat Radio. I am your host, Jason Stanton, the Paranormal Rebel. I do have a special co-host again tonight who's going to be co-hosting for a while. Jody Smith, which I know you all love to death because, well, I love her to death too. She's awesome. Fantastic woman. Before we get going, just a couple quick things. Again, go to Amazon, pick up my book, Unrested Peace. It's available on Kindle and paperback. It's a great deal. Has nothing but 5-star ratings. That is fantastic. These guys will love it. This Saturday, Palmyra, New York. You guys got to get up there because I'm going to be doing an event, and it's going to kick ass. So, I mean, you definitely want to be involved with that. And then, obviously, September 20th is the St. Albans Sanatorium benefit. I will be down there donating all of my time. I am not getting any money for that one at all. Not even my expenses are being paid. I'm going down there out of the courtesy of my own heart to try to help restore the building. And that's the whole goal. You don't even have to buy a ticket. Just go to Home Depot or Lowe's, get a $50 gift card, and that's all you got to do. And you know, send me a copy of that receipt, and I'll get your name on a list, and you're in. That's all it takes. And that's all I have, and that's basically how I open the show normally, Jody. Do you have anything you want to add? I'm alone. Jody? Miss Hans? Mrs. Smith?
It says she's still there. 1 second.
It's all good. But tonight, we not only is Jody Smith co-hosting, which, like I said, she'll be doing that now for a few weeks, but we also have Karen A. Dahlman. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right, or else she's probably going to kick my ass all over the country. But I'm pretty sure it's right. I'm 10%
right.
sure. I said it right.
You got
okay.
It right.
Nice. She's going to be in the house. She's a wonderful author. She wrote a book about Ouija boards and her experiences. It's called The Spirit of Ouija. And it was released in October 2013, which I haven't read it personally, but I've been experimenting the hell out of Ouija boards over the course of the past, almost a year now. So I'm really, really interested in knowing what exactly is her involvement with Ouija boards and how she come up with the concept of writing a book on this. Are you there, Karen?
I'm here. Yes, I was waiting for Jody, but yes, we can deep dive. We could deep dive into Ouija however you'd like to. I've been doing the board for 41 years now.
Different microphone tonight.
Different microphone tonight.
Yeah, she could hear me. I don't know why you couldn't hear me because I tried to fix this problem. But I'm so excited about our guest tonight, Jason, because I actually collect Ouija boards and have a lot of experience in this area. So I'm super excited.
Excellent.
Oh, great, Jody. Excellent.
I'm running experiments with Ouija boards. Jody collects Ouija boards, and she wrote a book on Ouija boards. What a fucking awesome show.
We have it covered.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, what kind of, before we get going, I got to know, Jody, what kind of Ouija boards do you have?
Oh, my gosh. Well, of course, I have the usual paranormal gamut of repossessed Ouija boards, things that I have, lifted from other people's homes because, I had to go there and clean things out of their homes that shouldn't be there. And then, of course, they did not want me to bring that Ouija board back into their house. But, of course, as you know, those things usually happen because people don't know how to properly use their Ouija boards. They just don't know what they're doing, and they don't know what they should do or what they shouldn't do, and sometimes they invite the wrong sorts of things in. But I also have some beautiful handmade boards that were done by some artists that I actually paid quite a bit of money for over the years. I have a couple of really beautiful pieces that I take out for special Halloween seance events and, that sort of thing.
Excellent. Now, another quick question before we get going, Jody. Have you ever played strip spin the bottle on the Ouija board?
No, but I really like that idea. Wow, Jason. What event do you have coming up closer to Halloween? Let's just think about that.
I have
to think on that.
20th. I have one September 20th. That's the closest I'm going to get for now. And then eventually I'll wind up booking more events. But anyway, let's get on with the guest because, well, that's why she's here. We're supposed to be harassing her, not each other. So
I think we better move on before I start talking about Halloween costumes. I mean, this could just lead to anywhere,
Coming up quick. So tell me, Karen, how did you come up with the concept of actually writing a book on Ouija boards?
Well, as I mentioned a little earlier, I've been using the boards for 41 years. And what happened was, Jason, I had kept copious notes over the years since '89. Every time I had a session with the board, and it was really for myself, just because I was getting such astounding results, talking to different spirits and guides and entities. Mm-hmm. I recorded everything, and because the messages were so profound at times, and the messages were breakthrough healing sessions really for people that I found would come to my open message circles, that I felt like it was time to share my path with it, and how the week has been a very positive experience within my life, and I've always used it that way since the day I started using it. So the book made sense because I wrote a first book about creativity, and that was written with the help of my spirit friends through the board. And what happened was isn't that cool? I started a bunch of radio shows, and people really wanted to understand what they were doing behind the scenes, what they were telling me as I wrote the book, what was my experience with the spirits. So I'm writing a third book right now, but I broke writing that book and wrote my Spiritual Ouija book because people wanted to hear the back history behind, my messages and who I was talking to and the pros and cons and what to do and not to do and how to, pretty much a how-to book on using the Ouija. And that's why I wrote the Spiritual Ouija, 4 Decades of Communication. That's where that came from.
Wow, I can't wait to read that. I am so excited. I had not heard about your book, and I have been using the Ouija board for a good 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Since I received my very first one, believe it or not, from my parents as a gift. I can't wait to read it. I've absolutely believed I have gotten some very positive messages as well. What was your very first board, and how did you get it?
Well, I love that you got yours from your parents because I got mine from Santa Claus. And
Me
I got
too.
my first board. Yeah. Look at this.
Yes.
Mine was in 1973. It's one of the Parker brothers before Hasbro took over, and it's the board I use the most. I do collect boards too, Jody. I love. They're beautiful. I have artistic ones, creative ones, and I also have one, the old-fashioned ones. 1902 is my oldest board. But I'm really into it. And so when I was really young, I was the age of 8, I was playing with some friends down the street. Didn't even know what a Ouija board was, but they had one. They pulled it out and said, we're gonna use this game. And I said, what do you do with it? And they said, well, you put your hands on it and spirits talk to you. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool because I see spirits all the time, although I didn't tell people I did. I was told I'd be crazy if I told anybody that. So my friends, we started. Yeah, right, exactly. So we started talking to these spirits, and then all of a sudden this child spirit came through, and they said, oh, that's our sister. She's dead. I said, what? You have a dead sister? And she goes, yeah, one of the gals in the room, her twin died right after birth, a little shortly after, and so they just got to know her over the board. And they've had this whole relationship with her through the Ouija board. It was just crazy to me and amazing. I quickly ran home, told my parents, and I said, Santa Claus has got to bring me one this year for Christmas. And that was the beginning of my odyssey with the boards. That's when it all started.
Wow, I love that. I love it. That's
Thanks.
Great.
It's a fun story. Yeah, it's a fun story. And it sounds like both you two, which I really love to talk to people who are not afraid of the board and who are actually using the board. I think a lot of people I talk to, there's that common fear of, like you were saying earlier, Jody, that, they're afraid, get it out of my house. It's possessed or it's possessing me. And you're right, there is a way to do it and use it. But also, I think people too quickly give their own ownership over to a board, where it's really about yourself. You don't need a board to communicate with spirits, as you know.
Absolutely.
I don't need the board. Right. So I think one of the things I really wanted to do with my book too, when I wrote it, was to really dispel the negative connotation, the myth around Ouija, and that it really, and put it back in the parlor rooms of the heyday when everybody practically owned a Ouija board. And in fact, in 1966, when Parker Brothers bought Ouija board from Fold, who was making it back then, before then, that year alone, sales, they sold 2 million copies. It outsold Monopoly, which was the highest selling board game they had today. So it was not a negative thing. People were buying them right and left. And over the years, it's become more tainted, as you know. For various reasons, we could discuss those, too.
Absolutely. I have actually purchased one as a gift for someone once upon a time who actually got very upset about it, and it was a beautiful board I had gotten in Jamaica that was blessed, by a Jamaican priestess, the whole thing. And I was so excited to give it as a gift. A friend of mine who was actually kind of a very witchy type of a friend as well, and I never expected the bad reaction, that I kind of got when I tried to give it to her. Yeah, it is so stigmatized. It really is. I don't know how it's gotten to be so bad over the years, but, often I have people that are very surprised when, if I even mention to them that I collect them at all, and, often I don't even mention that.
Right, it's a stigma, and even in the paranormal community, there's a stigma attached to it too, which can often be negative. Which it's okay. I think if you fear it, you shouldn't use it. It's a tool, it's a device, just like a pendulum or tarot cards. If you fear it, don't use it, because you are activating and working within other realms. There's no doubt about it in my mind. And I liken it kind of to a cosmic phone. You dial up and make a phone call, and you don't always know who you're going to get until you learn to prepare yourself so you get consistency. Like I have, and I'm sure you do too, Jody. I have several guys that I've worked with over the years, and some of mine go back as far as 20 plus years. That I talk to regularly with the board or even without the board. At this point, they do come in my dreams and also come through some of my journaling. But I use the board because I want to educate people on this beautiful tool. And by the way, I have all my Ouija boards out in my home. People walk in, and people that are afraid of them, a lot of times don't even notice them. But people that do notice them make comment. I find that they usually say, well, I don't know about that, but I've used one before. But it's always this little trepidation, and I think it's because they did it during a sleepover and they scared themselves silly. Your mind starts playing tricks with you, and maybe they've had some real experiences. But I think, that a lot of that caters to the fear around the board. And one thing to remember, the day after I received my board in 1973, so I got mine on Christmas, December 25th. December 26th, the Exorcist movie was released, the one with the Ouija board in it. See? And that started its downfall, seriously. That really catered to its downfall.
Sure. You are a brave woman, because I don't keep, and I do use tarot cards, oracle cards. I'm very big on collecting pendulums. I do a lot of divination. I keep my runes. All of that is closed away behind glass doors in my office shelves. I don't have any of it out in my house, for people to just see when they first walk in here. I really keep all of it put away. I sort of learned to do that over the years. So I think you're very brave that you keep all of that out in your house. I really do.
Well, thank you, but I did it because, well, first of all, I've been in the board such a long time, and the book this book just came out, and it hasn't been a year yet. It'll be a year in October, and when I came out with the first book, which was November 2012, called The Spirit of Creativity, Embodying Your Soul's Passion, that one really rocketed me into some great radio shows internationally as well, and then we started exploring the Ouija board, and at that point, I was so out in the open with it that I said, you know what? All my boards are out. My house is sacred to me, and I only invite those that I really trust to come into my house. But I, too, though, keep my tarot cards and those other special tools, my ruins or my I Ching. I keep those private in bags and stuff. But the boards I have out are the ones I don't use regularly. They're the ones that are more for decor because I love the artwork on them, and they're old.
Right.
But the one I use all the time, that one I do put it away. It's my 1973 board, and I pull it out for only the sake of using it, and then I put it back in its protective covering because there's a specialness to it, and I think I understand that because you have your other tools you use too. It's like you want to keep it sacred, and I think that helps also contain the energy of it. But when I say energy of it, the energy of what I've created with it, the opening I've created, as well as just keeping the reverence and respect for the tool, which keeps the reverence, respect when I use the tool and I just communicate with other consciousness.
That is so true, and it's so interesting that you brought that up because I think that maybe a lot of our listeners that don't have experience in these areas, who maybe aren't sensitives or are not psychics, or maybe people, like we're talking about that are a little bit more leery of using tarot cards or I Ching or runes or really any form of divination, they maybe don't understand about how sacred these tools become to people, such as us that use them all of the time. And they maybe don't understand the way that these tools also start to build up, to me, what I would consider to be very, very positive energy. I mean, when I take out, my favorite board or my favorite deck of cards, I really do go back to that same deck time and time and time again when I really, truly need to look for answers. And I want to know if you find yourself doing that same thing as well because of the positive energy that you get there.
This is a real good topic in itself to discuss because I think you're absolutely 100% right when you say about the care and respect, as I was discussing earlier, too, for our tools. They are sacred, and yes, that is why the board I use the most, always I put it away. It's very, very special to me. It's my first board. It's what brought me this odyssey. And by the way, because I'm so comfortable with it, my spirit friends, I call all the spirits I talk to, whether the deceased, the ethereal beings, the angels, the et cetera. I can go on and tell you all the different kinds I talk to. But They always tell me, they say, get out that board. We want to use that board instead because it's my comfortability with it, and they have to come through me, and that's the one I'm most comfortable with. And I have such a built-up energy or ambiance around it, like we talked about with sacredness. And so, yeah, that's really an important part of using the board with great results. And not just to scare the bejeebers out of yourself, because if you have like a sacredness to any of these divination tools you use, you're going to be able to find that like attracts like, and the energy you build up around it with yourself and with the object itself attracts the same kind of energy, similar energy. And so I think that's important, and that's why I believe most of us that do work with tools and are sensitive, we feel that, we know that, the spirits tell us that, and so it's our way of just keeping respect for the whole communication that takes place between the different energies. It's that respect, and that respect is what I find garners respect from the other side. So I don't get all these negative, all these demonic forces everybody always talks about for those reasons.
I don't get them either. I never really have. And I tell that to people all the time. And, not that I've never come across forces or entities that I felt were not very nice. In my travels as a paranormal researcher, I certainly have come across my share of things that I did not feel happy being close to. But, no, I've never had any trouble working with boards throughout my life. It's always been very positive for me. I'd like to know from you, though, in your book, when, as we're going through the chapters of it, for people that are interested in picking it up and reading it, do you really give tips in there to people that are maybe really curious, who are brand new to Ouija boards, who have maybe never had one, sort of how to get started, or, any tips of that nature for them?
Yes, I absolutely do. I would liken this book to Ouija 101. That's kind of
good.
Yeah, it's definitely 101. Basically, what I do in the book is I like to talk about the history of the Ouija. I spend a little bit of time in the book on that. And then I go into my history from the age of 8 all the way up, and the spirits I meet along the way. And it's written in a way where you can jump around the book and go to different sections, but I really highly recommend you learn about the Ouija history, why it fell from the grace of the parlor rooms, and what's the negative connotation around it, and then how to dispel that yourself, within yourself, and when you use this tool, if you choose to use it. But then Chapter 4 in my book is exclusively directed towards how to do a Ouija session. I give 13 steps of how to set the ambiance space. Yeah, thank you. And then I also talk about how to close the circle, how to close the space. I talk about the importance of why, how. I talk about how you can even do Ouija with a makeshift Ouija. How to do the opening prayer, incantation. I have a breathing exercise that's been very successful, and I also did a circuitry exercise that we can talk about in a little bit about how to balance your polarities, the male-female energy within ourselves, to get good results, too, on the other side. It's just, over the years, and I kept, again, copious notes on this, over the years, I really worked with experimenting and studying and learning how to use it with excellent responses. I don't get just yes, no. I get paragraphs upon paragraphs when they come through and talk to us. And it's not just they give me answers. They actually are like a part of the life of the people that come to the circle. So they would interact with the people, like ask them questions, like, so how is that working for you right now? I'd like to give you a suggestion. Have you tried this? And then the person will answer, and then there'll be a dialogue with the board and the spirits. It's really quite phenomenal, and I've been able to get to that place by following these 13 steps in my book at Chapter 4, and also using the prayer, the techniques that I mentioned, and it's really quite simple. It's not like it's complicated, and it's really common sense. Yeah, these are things that we have to do consistently, as you probably found out, Jody, too, over time. It doesn't happen. This level of communication doesn't happen right from the get-go, but it will happen consistently over time if you follow these kinds of guidelines. And in my book, I say those are imperative that people learn those to have good responses.
Absolutely.
What's the history of the Ouija board? When did it start, and how did it actually get a bad name of being some kind of weird, fucked up thing that is portrayed now today?
Exactly. Well, it was actually 1890 when the patent was first submitted to the U.S. Patent Office, and it was in 1891 when it was granted in February that year. And they immediately started making Ouija boards. And in my book, I have the original patent in there.
Wasn't it?
What did you say, Jason?
The idea switchboard, right?
Yeah, the idea started, actually, you know what, it's very interesting. The idea came out of about mid-1800s. There was this movement in the United States called the spiritualist movement. And it was a group of people that, you know about them, Fox sisters, you know about the rapping, the table tipping, and all that stuff. Well, people did alphabet cards where you point your finger at it and then you feel the spirit tell you to stop on a certain letter. They did like this roulette spinning card device. They had a witch board, which people believe even came out before the Ouija board because one of the president's wedding, right? And so right around that time, 1890, is pretty much when it all was happening. And when the patent was finally granted, they just went to town, and they made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands and thousands. And then by 1920, they were pretty much in everybody's parlor room. Everybody had them. It was an easy way to speak to your dead relatives. People used them to talk to dead people. People were lost in the Civil War. They were lost in the World War I, World War II. People were using these tools because it allowed them to skip paying a psychic. And it was like, for a buck or two, you could have a Ouija board and do it yourself. So like do-it-yourself psychic seance, basically, And it really took off in the United States. It took off in Canada as well. And what happened, let me back up a second. when the Ouija first came out, and the planchette was really around before that, the planchette device was a writing device. It looks like the planchette we have with the Ouija board, but there was an aperture with a pencil or a pen that could go in it, and you put your hand on it, it would write. And that then was paired with the board, like the alphabet cards, and that became the Ouija board and the planchette. That's not how those two developed together. But the planchette came out of Paris, and that was also in the late 1800s. So all this was developed around that time, and people had an opportunity to speak to all the dead relatives. It was really a tool to speak to dead people, is what it was at that time.
I believe it was in the 70s when Parker Brothers bought the rights to it, right?
It was 1966 when they bought the rights to it. And as I said a little bit earlier, that was that year it outsold Monopoly, their highest-selling board game, and it sold 2 million copies the first year alone when they took it on.
Wow.
The Fold Company had it all those years, and they sold literally millions as well through all those years. Mm-hmm. And the family held it all the way up to 1966 when it was sold to Parker Brothers. Now Hasbro owns Parker Brothers, so Hasbro makes the board now, as you guys probably know.
Right.
And how did it get the bad name of being some kind of fucked up board? Because quite frankly, I'm getting tired of people coming up to me and saying, "Oh, I used the Ouija board, and now my house is nothing but chaos."
Right.
And I argue the fact it's not the board, it's the operator.
You know, I never. When did you guys start hearing that? Because I don't think I ever heard that until like at least the late, I don't know, like the early 90s, mid 90s. What do you think?
I would say yes, early to mid 90s, and now it's just being blown out of proportion.
Crazy.
And like I said, I've been experimenting with this board for, a year now. I went out and I bought the Ouija board, and this is what I've been doing. I ran a few different tests several times. I set it up, and I put a camera on it for 4 hours, and after I reviewed the camera, not a fucking thing happened. So then I said, okay, I need to put energy by it. Maybe then something will happen. So I put an EM pump next to it. And again, 4 hours later, I did this several times, not just one time, several times I ran these tests. And not a fucking thing happened. So then someone said, well, it's got to be energized by a human. Well, I had to take it out of the fucking box, you idiot.
It needs more energy.
So it did have the energy thing. And again, I kept running these tests over and over and over, and nothing happened. So it's definitely not a gateway at all. It's something with the operator that is causing all these bad experiences. And I'm sorry to say, but damn near every person on this planet, almost, not saying everyone, but damn near everybody on this planet when they were a teenager, they played with a fucking Ouija board. And you only have, 20, 30 people coming to you, 100 people, even if it was 5,000 people coming to you, saying, hey, I had a bad experience with it. That percentage is so... You have more of a chance of getting bit by a shark than having a bad experience with a Ouija board.
It's so true.
I so agree with you. And now, when I was young, it was the early 70s when I was using this board. I remember I was excited about it. So when I had sleepovers or girlfriends come over, we always do the Ouija. But then they get there, they were so young, they couldn't keep focused on it. Or you even have their parents tell them, you cannot play Ouija board with Karen Dahlman. So I was like, what? I was raised Catholic. Santa Claus brought it to me. We go to church. We had our cross with Christmas fishes hung in our rooms. I could say the rosary. The actitrition. I could do all that stuff. And I thought, how can this be evil? I'm allowed to do this at home. I have a religion that I followed at the time. I didn't see it as controversy. I didn't see it as opposite of religion. I saw it as an opportunity to speak to people who had died. And to let people know that life continues on. And I thought that, to me, I felt like a great researcher, and I was like, but I felt alone with it because either people didn't want to believe me or they were told not to play it with me. So I pretty much trusted one of my brothers to do it with me most of those years, and then I had a few friends throughout the years that would do it with me, really until around high school, college, when I could get real serious with the board. And then, wow, we went to town. And that's when I started keeping all these notes, and it just grew from there. But, yes, I've heard over the years people say the same thing. Don't use the Ouija, oh, my God, it's evil. And I'm thinking, it's not evil. And, Jason, I love that you said it. I'm going to say it, too. It's the operator. When there's a problem with the computer, it's usually the operator that doesn't know how to use their computer. When there's a problem with the board, it's that the operator doesn't know how to protect themselves or how to use it correctly. Seriously, I think a lot of this evil out there is a projection of our own shadow side of ourselves, our own fears, and we distort them. Although I agree with Jody. Things do happen and go bump in the night, and there are some negative earthbound energies out there that we have to be aware of. So,
there's definitely negative energy out there, and I've always argued that. I think you're going to have a bad experience with a Ouija board, much like you would with a K2 meter or dowsing rod or a mel meter or any of the case is. It's a tool that allows spirits to communicate with you. That's all it is. That's it. And the Ouija board is a little bit more easy to manipulate. I agree with that. So, spirits may take advantage of that. 100%. But it's always the operator. Be careful what you ask for. Be careful who you're calling. Be careful how you phrase your questions whenever using that particular device.
Well,
very.
Well, and you have to be careful, too, because let's face it, spirits lie.
They do. Humans lie. Why wouldn't spirits?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I find, too, when I talk to, I have names I'll call my different types of entities I speak with. When I speak to an earthbound spirit, one that is more tied to the personality that just left, and those are the ones that typically haunt places and stay in places. They repeat the same acts over and over again because they're kind of, in a way, stuck or they're attached to their personality. Residue of their personality is the best way I can explain it. And I find that those sometimes will names, and there is some trickery. And because if they're attached to personality, like you just said, people lie, spirits will lie. They will do what they used to do in their personality. And even those that are ethereal beings, not that they lie, they don't know everything. So I've really learned over the years is when I get messages from the other side, is to not put all my weight on those, to not hold my breath, but to kind of go further and ask for clarification. And the main thing I've learned, and I know this from the guides who I work with that are very helpful. They really support me in my own personal development and growth, and my friends' development and growth when they come to the circle, is that they always suggest to me, go back and hear our information, but weed through it and what makes sense to you. What is the truth for you? Not that we're here to tell you the truth. We're here to help you find your own truth. And I love that. And that people say, well, how do you know if you're talking to a bad spirit or a good spirit? And I say, well, I hate to use those words, good and bad. What I like to say is I know it's a positive experience for me when the spirit never tries to control me, manipulate me, or tell me what to do, but yet they help support me in the direction I'm going, or they give me some guidance. And it's never to belittle me, berate me, or question why I haven't done what they suggested. It's just a matter of they're going to be there to support me. And then I always know over time who these characters are, and you can learn to tell. And I'm sure Jason and Jody, your experience, you probably found this out yourself, that you can learn to rely on some of those spirits you might talk to because they've been consistent over the years. Has that been your experience with the board?
Oh, absolutely. Jason, I don't know what kind of questions you've asked, in trying to experiment and work with the board, but I always try to ask a question that only I will know the answer to, and that way I know if they're lying to me or not about who they are.
Yeah, I always direct my questions so that it's specific about something in particular. I mean, if you're trying to contact, a relative of somebody, do the history on that relative. Ask the family members on every little thing so that when you ask, specific questions, you can ask things like, oh, what was your favorite color, or what was your favorite song growing up, or what was your favorite flower, and you're going to get hopefully some kind of answer that will coincide with that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion too. And the other thing I do is that when we're getting ready to do a session, I always set them up in advance, and then people that are invited to that one I call it open message circle. I say, formulate your questions, have them in your mind. Just know the spirits are already around, they're already listening, and they know you're going to be part of this group. And what I find happens is that people don't have to open their mouth and even say a word about what their questions were or what they wanted to talk about. The spirit goes right on in and directs right to them, and they could be talking. I said, don't even ask your question out loud. Ask it in your head. And I can tell you I'm just blown away by that. And I don't do it for like fun and games or to do parlor tricks. I do it because it allows that person there to see that there's no way in hell I would have known what she was going to ask or what he was thinking about. And then that way they get some kind of validation or confirmation for themselves. And they're not even touching the board. It's always myself and the same partner I use. I only have a couple, 2 or 3 partners I work with because I also want that connection that we've built to be strong. And so this one we don't have to be touching the board. They only have to open their mouth, and it goes right to them. And that to me is validation. Holy cow, that says a lot.
The common question that everybody uses, even in the paranormal field, the first question they always ask that is so vague is, if there's anyone here, will you please come to me?
Right.
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 Always. That isn't exactly too specific, people, you know? That's saying, hey, you know, I'm serious. Even if you're walking down the street, come on in, have a chat, you know? Jeffrey Dahmer, if you're out, come on over. Charles Manson, hey, you get in on this action too, you know?
Yeah, don't touch me. Don't come near me, and don't touch me if you're there.
Yeah, Cody knows that.
Yeah, I don't.
She got fondled once. It wasn't a pleasant experience for her.
Yeah, I've got enough creepers without adding to it with those guys.
Exactly. Why invite all the hoodlums, if you want to call it that? Yeah, it's like opening your front door and telling everybody to come on in and just be at peace in your house, right? You don't do that, and so you don't do that with because you are inviting things to communicate and come through, and it's an exchange. It's an exchange of energy, and you're inviting that, and it should be taken with reverence. Again, that's the word I tend to always go back to is the sacredness and reverence and respect. I mean, I find too that it's just like in life. If I am respectful to somebody and when I talk to the person and acknowledge them and thank them, I find that the spirits appreciate that too, and they give me the same kind of respect back. Plus, I attract that kind of energy towards me, whether it's in life or through the board. It's what you are inside is kind of what you get on the outside too. It's that whole, I guess, law of attraction, you want to call it that. I don't even like to talk about that too much. It's more about what you are inside, what you harbor within is what you're going to find comes to you. And that's with the board, and that's with any device, any tool you work with when you're working in other realms. You attract to what you put into it. You attract to it what you feel and what you think. And along those lines, maybe you two discovered this too using the board, is that if I'm not fully up to par, meaning I might be feeling like slightly sick, or I've got a headache, or I had a rough day at work and I didn't release the stress of the day, they have a hard time communicating, and they flat out sometimes say, I can't come through, the energy is not right now, you are off. And so I have to go center myself or wait for another session. Or I find, too, that not just my internal ambiance could affect the session, but the external ambiance, such as solar flares going on or eclipses of the moon, sometimes it will prevent communication, or sand or dust storms or windstorms or really stormy nights can also prevent communication. And they come through and tell me this. So there's a lot of things that we can't control, and there's things that we can control in terms of setting up the stage for communication. But some of these things, such as solar flares, I don't know about you. I haven't been able to control the solar flares yet. So, or alignment of planets, that that can affect the communications. It's such a sensitive tool. It really, really is. And so when we sit there and go, anybody here? Who's here? Talk to me. You're really, just welcoming all kinds of just crud. You're just welcoming all kinds of crud. Instead, I really suggest coming from a whole different place when using the tool. And again, Chapter 4 of my book discusses how to set that up for yourself.
Yeah, and most books don't cover that at all. And, just back to what you were just saying, I just want to backtrack for a second because there might be a lot of our guests out there who maybe don't understand. What Jason was saying about, okay, you're working with a K2 meter or a Mel meter. When spirits come through those types of devices, they're drawing on the energy or the batteries that we put into those types of devices. But when you're working with someone who is a psychic or a medium who is working through a Ouija board, those completely 100% drawing on the energy of that person. So as to what you were saying, if you're not feeling up to it and you're not feeling well, they really can't feed off of your energy to properly come through. So I think that's an interesting point that you brought up, that, you know, a lot of people might not understand that.
Yeah, and you experienced that yourself as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would never, I never try to attempt any sort of spirit communication. If I'm not feeling well, it's really not a good time. You know, if you're not 100%, it's not a good time for any sort of divination. I definitely would not recommend it, because you're not going to get the answers that you're seeking are not going to properly come through.
No, it's not. And you know, I've found over the years that the spirits that I work with more exclusively at times, they really are there to protect me, and they serve as my bouncers and my guides through the other realms, the other consciousness, and they really have my best interest. And what I mean by that is they're going to say, you know, you've had this cold now, it's just not the right time. And so it's so true. So I heed that, and I say, okay, well, I always say thank you. You know, I appreciate them, but I just know it's not the right time, because you will get mixed up in some weird energy could slip in, you know. And so I really make sure that the people I'm doing it with, meaning putting their hands on the planchette in the room with me, are also feeling in a good space too. And if they're not, we just postpone the session for another time. And that's happened. You know, having groups of people come over, and all of a sudden it doesn't work because something's off. Again, it could be atmospheric effects, or it could be one of ourselves, and the board just shuts down, and they've explained it's not the right time in that environment with these conditions. So, and the other thing I wanted to bring up, too, is, you know, listen, I've experimented with everything with the board, from point A to Z, everything. And so when I write about my book and I say, try not to do this or don't do this, it's things that I've actually experimented with. And not because I was just trying to, it's because it's kind of an evolution of using the board for myself from being 8 all the way up to where I am now. It's just over the years I've kind of refined the process. But one thing I do want to say is I highly recommend never use it while you're imbibing on some substances that are going to alter your state of being or your consciousness, because then again you'll attract some weird stuff to you, some negative stuff to you. So don't drink in Ouija. Like, don't drink and drive. Don't drink.
Absolutely. And don't you think that that's when a lot of people that are new to using it, that's when they break it out? They're like, hey, everybody, let's party. Oh my God, let's get it out.
Right.
And then
it's a party time.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you get those kind of calls, Jason, when people tell you that? They had a party, they broke out the Ouija board, and now they think, you know, everything in their house has a poltergeist. Yeah.
I've had people message me, and yeah, it's typically females for some reason. I guess these women are all fucked up. Don't ask me. But it's typically females. They have a slumber party. They say, oh, let's do witch doctors. Let's do witch stuff and play with a Ouija board. And
Bloody Mary.
You know, and then all of a sudden they call me up and say, dude, I think I opened up some kind of parallel universe or gate, and now all hell is breaking loose. And I'm like, stop smoking the pot, put down the fucking bottle, and then call me.
That's it.
Because, you know, it's all crazy stuff.
Yeah. That's exactly what I've heard the same thing from people, too. And then my first question always is, was this during a party? One of the first things I say, were you guys, doing pot or drinking? What was the substance? Were you looking around? Were you switching operators? You know, there's all these questions to ask because you learn over time what not to do, and so you know kind of what to ask and what you shouldn't do. So, yeah, that's a good point.
Well, and then they're doing all the wrong things. They don't know how to open the board. They never closed the board. I get that all the time. I'll say, did you close the board? And they're like, what? What do you mean? What are you talking about? Maybe you could talk about that a little bit, because I know a lot of people have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay. Well, do you want me to talk about opening the session first and then closing, or you want me to just go right to the close?
No, talk about
the beginning. You go to Toys R Us, you pick up the board, obviously.
Yeah.
Unwrap it, and you read the instructions. But let's go right from there.
Mm-hmm.
What instructions? The board doesn't come with instructions. Except for it has a little piece of paper nowadays Yeah. And so, yeah, you know, they just say you can be amazed. You're going to have a wonderful time talking to dead people, basically. Yeah, so you board Toys R Us, or you buy it on eBay or wherever, or you collect them as Jody has from different homes. And then you what I do is I highly recommend you pick a place that you're going to you could use on a regular basis that has no distractions to it to do your Ouija. So mine, for me, is in my dining room. My dining room table, I put the board there, and when the friends come over, the partners come over to do the board with me, we work in the same spot every time. And you want to also set the session of a serious nature. So to do that, we always usually have water with us or tea to ground ourselves. We light a candle or incense. We might even sage. And then we take a moment to breathe. We do some deep breathing exercises to really go down into our sacrum, into our sacrum, our lower chakra, ground it into the earth, and then bring the energy back up into our heart and really open our hearts to messages and allow the light to us. This is in my book, by the way. You don't really have to write this down. It's all in my book. And then I suggest at that point you hold hands with your partner, and I do it.
Hold that hand.
Yes, it's more fun when it's male female too.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting to.
So you hold hands, and this is how I recommend you hold hands. And this is a way to create circuitry of the balance of male-female energies within.
That's not my hand, Jason.
Maybe a little pat on the too.
Now?
Smell her hair a little bit.
That wasn't my hand.
All right, you can continue.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, don't grab hands. So put your left hand up, your right hand facing down, and the person across the Ouija board puts their right hand up and their left hand down, and you hold hands that format. The left is your feminine side of your body. It receives. The right side of your body is your masculine. It gives. Masculine energy is a giving energy. Feminine energy is a receptive, receiving energy. So you balance the polarities, and I find that this has really helped hone the energy within ourselves. So when I would hold hands like that, I usually state a prayer. It's in the book, by the way, an incantation prayer that helps protect everybody there, the board, the white light, etc. And I really set up a stage of we're welcoming our spirit guides and friends who come from the divine source. Again, all this is written out for you, so you can read it verbatim, read it, take it and make it your own. And then after that, I just say, I want to say thank you, and we start our session. And we start our session by putting hands on the planchette. Now, one thing I noticed that beginners do is ask yes and no questions. I'm going to say this. Refrain from that. Ask open-ended questions, which means there must be an answer they have to learn to sell. Because on the other side, or I just call it the other side, these other realms of levels of consciousness or vibrations, they have to learn to manipulate within our realm to help the planchette around. It takes time and practice. So if you don't give them practice,
both of you. Just
go ahead.
Real quick question. I have to get this off while it's on my mind. Quick question to both of you. Have you ever contacted a spirit that was dyslexic?
I have.
That's a really great question. No, I actually never have. But that's a fact. I never actually even thought about it. But no, I've never had that problem.
I've had dyslexic, and I've had spirits who speak other languages, such as Spanish.
I have had that. I actually grew up close to Miami, so I've had that quite a few times.
And you know why? It's because you understand Spanish, don't you?
I understand quite a bit of Spanish and some French as well.
Can you speak some French for me? Come on, baby, you can do
it. Maybe later. Maybe later. This isn't my time. All the dirty stuff, Jason.
All right. That's where we're going with it. We're going back to that whole hands thing, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But
no.
Like true story, and I know I'm off the topic real quick. I once was involved with a team Going back about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, maybe even longer. Who the fuck knows? I can't keep track of all this shit anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a while ago, and one dude actually had Tourette's, and that was comical. That was extremely comical.
Oh, wow. So is the spirit had Tourette's?
No, one of the investigators.
Oh, okay.
No.
I thought
it
you
was
were
like
spirit.
Kind of.
Poor thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have had them come through and mix up the spelling. In fact, one of my spirit friends that comes through is his, I call it a he. They're really androgynous. These guys are light beings. This one's name is Healing Spirit, and he always gets words misspelled. And if I correct him, he will come back on and say, I'm trying, but I can't spell very well. So he gets his letters all mixed up at times. But he'll come back and try to correct it so we understand better. And he can be quite coherent, but yet there's some certain words he always flips the words around, like the word spirit, even his own name. He always writes it sprit. He calls him healing sprit or healing sprite instead of healing spirit. So I'll get that, and that's he does it all the time. So yeah, you'll get some of that stuff from your entities, and like the Spanish stuff I got from a ghost, and it was an earthbound spirit, a ghost that was haunting a hotel down in Mexico, and she came through speaking to me, and I understand Spanish and speak it a little bit, un poquito, and I spoke Spanish a little bit on the board, and she answered, and then what I find though, I've asked this question before of my guides over there, is that if the spirit it speaks another language, for example, like German, and I don't know German, I know wo ist Toiletten, ein Bier bitte, I can ask for a beer and where's the bathroom, basically, that's all I can do.
I would have no idea. No idea.
Well, I know the important stuff. You got to know how to buy your beer and how to go to the bathroom. Where's the bathroom at, right? And so thinking to both things, what they tell me is that they will interpret. There'll be interpreters on the other side helping them to get into language that I can understand. Because ultimately they want to communicate with us. If we ask, they really do want to come through and communicate. And it requires us to ask and be open and to allow to receive it. And they will work their language so we can understand it. I speak to dead animals all the time on the board, and I also speak to animals that are alive. Dead animals and alive animals. I speak to my alive cats through the board all the time. You can speak to the higher self. You can speak to other people's higher self that are alive if you have permission. It's really fascinating. So to talk to animals, it's a change in the frequency, and it's not like I'm hearing meow, 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 woof, woof, woof. They're actually being translated. Their pictures and images and their feelings are being translated into words by the spirits that help them communicate. So I actually get full-on words in paragraphs and sentences from the animals. They're usually short sentences, but they're no less. It's in English, and I can understand it.
Now let me ask you: Don't you believe? Because this is what I believe, that it's the messages that you're getting from their spirit guides, that's how you're connecting with that frequency. Because that's how I always feel about it.
Yes, that's exactly right. So what I do is I have a couple of spirits I always talk to, but by the way, this whole balance of male-female energy is a huge thing. As you know, on the Ouija board, it has the sun and the moon, which represents the masculine and feminine, the soul and the luna. So it's got the two balance of the energies right there, and those are critical symbols on the original Ouija board for those reasons. It's a balancing, and so I find that I have two spirits that enter the board from the corners of the sun and the moon. I call them sun and moon. They don't have names, but they let me call them that because that's how I can reference who they are. And when they come through, the moon does more feminine kinds of answers. They've about relationships, animals, where the sun comes through, and I talk more about work, industrial stuff, global messages. And so when I talk to the animals, it's typically the moon, a feminine energy, that comes through, and she will help the animals with their guides to communicate with me. And it's almost like what happens, I ask to speak to one of my cats who's alive, let's say. His name is Jack. And I want to talk to him, and they will like put me on hold, almost like you feel like you're on a phone call, and the planchette moves in circles, and it kind of goes like usually a spiral.
I know what you're talking about.
Right?
Thinking.
And
it's like it's thinking.
It's thinking, yes, and it's changing hands to translate. And you go into this mode bit, and you feel the energy change, too. Just changes. You feel, you know this, Jody, don't you? The energy changes.
I do.
And then the animals can come through, and then they'll talk to you. And then when they leave, the new energy comes through, and it changes again. So when you're talking different languages or different types of spirits or ethereal beings or ETs or ghosts or hauntings or whatever you're talking to, they all have a different vibration to them. And you begin to understand the feelings and vibrations as they come through. You literally feel it in your body. You literally see it with the planchette, the way it moves, or how it holds heavy or light or moves quickly or however it moves. You begin to, it's like I would call it a fingerprint of the energies. That's their calling card or their fingerprint of how they come on the board. And that's how you start to recognize some of your beings. And yet they always tell me who they are, too. I say, please identify yourself. And they tell me who they are as well. So, and you know what? I do want to make sure we go back to the session about closing the session because I know we didn't really quite cover that. I thought that might be important. So you do your session, and, again, ask open-ended questions. But when you're all done, and sometimes they tell you when they're done, and I always say don't go longer than an hour and a half at the most. In the beginning, I wouldn't go longer than half an hour to an hour, just to build up consistency. And also, you don't want to wear them out, make them tired, or you get too tired. But what you want to do is when you're done, your hands are on the planchette, you stop and you say, thank you, so-and-so, thank you, Moon, thank you, Healing Spirit, thank you, Jack, my cat, thank you all for coming through and speaking with us. We appreciate your insight, your wisdom, your guidance. We ask that we stay in the white light as we return to our lives, as we get in our cars and go back to our homes, and as we enter the rest of this week and continue in our personal lives. We thank you, and the white light is with us. And then we close the board. I put my board away. This is the board I always put away, blow out the candle, and walk away from that space, go into another space, and then sit down and have a conversation about it. That's how you close, and you close it. Be consistent with this, and you will find you'll have no residual energies hanging out around your house. You won't, because you're closing it and you're being sincere.
It's so true because you've actually disinvited them to be there at that point. It's so important. It's so important, I think, to say that to people because I've had so many people ask me about it, and so many people whose homes I've gone to have never done anything like that. They just don't know because back to what you said, there are no instructions when you buy a Ouija board. There's nothing in there.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I have a lot of reviews on Amazon for my book, too. And I think what the common theme I hear is that people say that they enjoyed the book because it's really a how-to book on using this tool in ways that they never even imagined they can use it. And so, yeah, I highly recommend if you're going to do the board to check out the book. You can buy it on Kindle. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on my website, too, which is KarenAAllman.com, because I have autographed copies if you want one. But I'm not just here to push the book, although I love selling copies of it. It's really the fact that it's such an important tool that can be used in incredible, amazing ways with results that I've had over the years, and you'll get a chance to take a peek at that. Because in all those copious notes I kept, I have dates, times, who was in the session, what was going on, and so I put all that down in my book and said, like, on this date, someone spoke to me, this person was at my session, and this is the message that we received, and it's verbatim. This stuff's not from memory. It's from my journal. So that is to me, I didn't have a process at the time to write all this down. I just did it because I was getting great messages and just kept my journals and then realized that it really was the makings of an incredible book. So that's kind of just another piece, too, I want to share.
Wow. So you started the journals, what, about 30 years ago, 20 years ago?
Yeah, I started the journals about, it was 87, 89, right in that time period I started. Then I was in college. So, wow. Yeah, about 25 years ago. And before that, I've always been a journaler. I've always been a writer. I kept, and some of the other things I had to remember from memory when I was really young, and that part is in the book. Oh, there's maybe some snippets of it, like I talked about my friend living down the street, and we talked to her dead sister, and there'll be a few other stories in there. and those are more just to explain my process and my history with the board. And those were mostly recalled from memory, or I had some journals I kept in parallel, were like personal journals, and I pulled those up. And it was amazing when I was reading through these notes that I kept, how everything came back to me. I mean, there it was, and I can remember the sessions, and it just really brought it all back to me. I pretty much relived every single one of those sessions as I wrote this book. It was such a pleasure to do that. It was such a treat. And my spirit friends would talk to me while I was writing this book, and they said, you know, we're helping you in your dreams, because I get all these great ideas about the book in my dreams, and I would shuffle different topics around, and I format it in my dreams, and that was them working with me, and then I'd go write it, and I'd come back and talk to them about it, and they just said, yeah, you know, we're going to keep coming to you in your dreams, not the boards with this book. Well, my first book, they came to me through the board, and I'm sure some of your listeners have heard, and you probably know this too, Jason and Jody, the Seth books that were written by Jane Roberts. She originally got started on the Ouija board and channeled Seth that way, and then she eventually just started channeling him as trance medium through herself. But there's quite a bit of work out there that has been done by people using the Ouija board with just incredible results. And as much as I get people telling me they're afraid of the Ouija board, I have people like you two, which I just love talking to, that write me privately and say, oh, my gosh, I've been using the board for years with great results. Oh, I just want to talk to somebody about this. And it's really quite cool that people are starting to come out of the woodworks with as well. Love that.
Now, if you had to give one bit of advice to somebody, you know, what do you think are the worst things that somebody could do when they're using a Ouija board, or the worst things that somebody could ask Spirit to do? I know a few things that I think, but I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, Jason really hit on it well when he said earlier, hey, who's here? Come in through, talk to me. It's no open your front door, invite everybody to your house and have at it at their will. I think that's a big no-no. The other thing is, as I said earlier, really have an intention behind why you're having a session. If it is to go into a house that's supposedly haunted, which I've done some hauntings, I've been invited to quite a few high-profile ones as well as just other homes that I was aware of.
Sure.
That there's definitely an intention, and you have a goal in mind. And I always ask permission. I think it's important that I don't go in there and just start, who are you? Talk to me. But I have permission. I have a different demeanor about it, and I welcome them to give me their story and to talk to me. And I find by being gentler with that approach, there's a lot more willingness to communicate, or they'll tell you, get out, I don't want to talk to you. And I respect that. I think the biggest mistake you make is not having respect for their space that they're in. It's sort of in the space I'm in, and who am I to say that I need to release them or get them out of that stuck space, or they may not even want to be out of that space. And that's me pushing my own free will. I think we need to be careful about that, pushing our free will and agenda on our spirits to speak with, thinking that we have the answers. Just being humble and coming into that space and allowing them the space to communicate. But also, I think a mistake we'll make is to really rely on all the messages. I think it's important to just sit through it, and not just because it's from an unseen being that they have all the almighty answers, or since they died they have all the answers of the universe, which is not the case. Right? Everybody I learned is on a level of evolution and progression, and you only know so as you're able to comprehend at that time, and that goes with the beings on the other side. So it's things of that nature, I would say. And curious, Jody, what to you are some of the mistakes or things people can do too to have?
Well, I love what you just said. I love what you just said because they're not God. They're spirits. They're not gods. It's like what you said. Maybe they only had a grade school education when they passed away, and they really don't have all the answers. I think a lot of times people that are new to Ouija, first of all, that don't know how to properly open or close the board, I don't think that they should necessarily do it in their dining room like somebody who is very experienced would do. And I definitely like what you said about using humility and respect, because so many times I think that they don't respect it. They look at it as it's a party board, and they're there to, they've watched one too many episodes of The Ghost Adventurers. They want to go in there and provoke and say, come through right now. I want you to touch me and touch Susie and knock that lamp over if you're here and move this glass right now. And really, it's, to me, the worst thing that you can do is ask for any spirit to come through during a session of any type of I'm very big on seance as well. During any type of a seance session, you don't start making demands and asking them to move things or throw things or shove things or touch things. And I think you're asking for aggression at that point, and that's when you're inviting the negativity, to come in.
That's an excellent point.
I agree. I think you have to be more direct with what you're phrasing and how you're phrasing it, and be careful, because and it's not just with Ouija boards. It's with any investigating device that's out there. Basically what you're doing. Think about it like this: is opening your door with a loudspeaker and saying, "Party over here." The neighborhood's going to show up, and that's what you're doing with anything that you have.
Exactly. I laugh, but it's comical, and I love that it's comical, but it's so true. And that's exactly right. You want to protect your space. You want to protect yourself. And the biggest piece of advice I can give to anybody, it just is within life. If you're ever feeling like you're being bullied or pushed around or spoken to incorrectly, you don't have to put up with that. And same with the board. If anything negative comes through and is making mockery of you or telling you what to do or that you suck or whatever, I've gotten all those things when I was young. What you need to do is that's to take control and charge of yourself and the session. Say, no, I refuse for you to speak to me that way. You must leave now. And you take the board, wipe it off, and you could try your session again. If it doesn't go away, you wipe the board and say, now you are released, and I am fine in my white light, and you put that board away and stop and don't use it, to a later time. Don't ever, just really don't ever take anybody's abuse. There's no reason for it. It's from a dead being or a live person. It's just common sense, but I think because you said, I love that you said, Jody, suggestion, which will draw to us aggression. And why do that? Unless it's what you want. I don't know why people want to. I think people want to have easier lives and more joyful experiences as opposed to scary, aggressive experiences. I may be wrong on that. Maybe people like the adrenaline rush, but for the moment, you're not going to like the overall outcome. For the end result. So I think it's good that we're talking about, these items such as this, because people will experiment with them. I know they will. What will happen?
Well, all right, here's another good question, because I'm just loaded with them, I guess you can say. How do you think that religion plays a part in utilizing this particular device?
Well, I have to say, I was raised a Catholic. I'm no longer practicing Catholic, but I saw no conflict in myself, and apparently my family saw no conflict either. Yet I didn't go to my CCD class or school or church and tell them about the Ouija board. Because what happened is, back in 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea, the bishop at the time decided to pick and choose what canons were going to be included in the Bible. And when they did that, they told anybody that would not find salvation through Jesus, the Son of God, as the Savior, by taking the sacraments and drinking the sacrificial blood and eating the flesh with the host, that they would be condemned. That they'd be condemned to hell, and that a lot of people would be tortured and accused of witchery and all kinds of things. So when that happened, it really created a scare of people who were already into talking to spirits and using oracles and divination tools, and they went underground. Though they were known as like the Gnostics, or they were the pre-early Christians, which were the Gnostics, or they were Hermetics, genetic scientists, and this came out of the Platonic theory. I read about this in my book, by the way. I explained some of this, and I think it's a great question to ask. So I think what's happened over the years, that kind of has transitioned down where if you don't believe a certain viewpoint, and you don't believe it exactly as the rest of that following believes, then you are considered a rogue, or you're considered blasphemous to certain religions. And I'm not knocking religions. Religions are great. They're great people. People like them. It's a great philanthropy. They're great rules and structures. There's good stuff for it. But I do want to say, though, that I find that people are quick to judge because there's places in the Bible where it talks about don't talk to false spirits. And I think anybody doing divination is talking to false spirits. And so there's a conflict, I would say, between somebody who is very religious and by the book, as opposed to someone who might be into religion and more spiritual. They might be more open to this technique, and they tend to be a little more open to, card readings and astrology and other kinds of divination oracle tools. So, you get a mixed group, and it's not to say all religious people are against this, but it's to say you will find that some of the stricter religions would say this is demonic and it's bad and I'm evil and I must be a demonologist because I'm using this tool, which is so far from the truth. I use this tool as the original Gnostics would use their own divination. What they would do is they might scribe, which is looking into water or a mirror. They may go to an oracle, a Delphi of oracle, and talk to the women that were there and get answers to questions. And they would talk to the spirits, and it was really a way to find the truth of their life. And again, they would practice a form of divination called theomancy, or there's a few terms for it, and it is being able to communicate with spirits. And the idea was, if you could work with the spirits enough, you could begin to evolve, grow yourself, become a better person, and evolve yourself in a way you have a better understanding of divinity within, that you begin to understand that you're a divine creature and a divine being within, and therefore you're connected to the God source at your own inner source, and that you don't need to go through intermediaries to have that connection to the divine source. And so I talk about this a lot in my books. My first book's a lot about that, how to activate that. And the second book, the Ouija book, really gets into that a little bit and explains how I use this tool in those ways, to work on connecting with the divinity within myself by learning to connect with all the possibilities of consciousness that's out there. That always helps me to come back within. So I know it's a long way to answer your question, but I think it's also connected, that also scares religions that you say, I'm a divine or divinity within myself, and I don't need to go through priests and rabbis and other kinds of clergymen in order to have my communication with God, with the source. I can go directly to that source myself. And I could say this on your radio show, but I got to tell you, I've said on a lot of other radio shows, that scares the crap out of people, and it really makes the call lines light up, and people will want to accuse me of being a demonologist, a devil worshiper or something.
My radio show doesn't pass judgment, and I'm more laid back, and Jody's more laid back. That's why I asked her to be co-host, because, that's the way it works. And last night, her first night, we learned something very special, that Jody was also a Catholic schoolgirl. And
you shouldn't have told him he has a plaid skirt fetish.
Uh-oh. And then he hides, right?
We did have to exaggerate a specific story, though, because she was going on about it being 5 years old, and I said, no, that will not work for me. You have to be at least 18. So it worked out well.
But you see, the Catholic parents, they bought me the Ouija board as well, and what you just said, way back through the ages, the early Catholics and the early Jews all practiced these types of forms of early mysticism, which all involved divination. Oh, I studied a lot of religion in college. It all involved early forms of divination, just like this. So I don't know how it got to be so taboo, over the years.
I think what happened is just nuts. That's what I think of why it became this big, bad, specific device that's out there. I think because, when you get into a lot of the Baptists and the Christian faiths, I guess you can say, a lot of them only believe in angels and demons being on this planet. And for the most part, they think if you're talking to something, there's a good chance it's just a demon. For some odd reason, they can't comprehend that you have free will and you can choose to go to heaven or hell. And I'm not even religious, and I know shit.
Right.
So, that doesn't click in their fucking, arrogant heads for some odd reason. So, when we bust out the Ouija board, one of the oldest forms of I'm sorry to say, everyone, it's a paranormal investigating tool. I know I'll get a lot of trash over that, but that's all it is. You're trying to contact, something beyond the grave, much like you're doing with your K2 meter, your dowsing rods, your EM pump, your, digital recorder. It's all the same fucking thing. You're trying to contact something that you can't see in search for answers that you're hoping to get out of it. That's all it is. To be completely honest with you, that's actually what religion is. You're searching for answers from something you can't see, hoping he'd give you a sign that he hears you. That's investigating. I'm sorry.
And either way, you don't always get the answer that you're seeking or the answer that you want. It's just the way it is.
That's right.
It's so true. Jason, do you have another question you want to move on to?
Oh, we can move on to a different statement, but I even forgot where the hell I was going with that. I was going somewhere with that. I just can't.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
I got two images in my head now. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. That's what it is. You know what? I know. Yeah, I better get out that Catholic schoolgirl outfit for Halloween. That's what's going to happen.
There you go.
But no, I remember. But the point is all these guys gave it a bad name. I mean, it's one of the original forms of, investigating, and considering that they only believe in demons and angels, they looked at it as something that was more evil, so forth and so on. And especially when you're going back to the mid-1800s, where everything was, extremely religious, and they didn't want to move forward with technology or anything like that, so forth and so on. Even mirrors got the same bad name the same way. Someone invented a mirror and said, oh, I could see myself. That's evil. That's brand new. I don't like it. And that's basically how it worked. And the same thing with the Ouija board. And I think that name kind of carried throughout the years. But, when I'm sure you guys can agree with me, but the 1990s, early 1990s, even all the way up to, the early 2000s, that's when the spiritual movement really, really took the fuck off.
Yeah.
I mean, before you had spiritualists, but for the most part, they were Christians or Catholics or Jewish, one of the three. I mean, that was the dominating one. Now everybody's a spiritualist, everybody you talk to, and they're all fucking psychics too for some odd reason. I haven't made that connection yet. I guess it's one of the things I got to channel.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true.
I think that's why it really got its bad name in the 90s, because these spiritualists were taking this device out. And the diehard Catholics and Christians and Baptists and, whatever fucking one, shows their fingers up their asses all day long. I don't know who they are, but, they looked at it and said, you're an evil. That's an evil thing. Stop it.
Is that BS?
I think it's the government, actually. I think they did that.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, that's funny.
They didn't label on it or something. I don't fucking know.
Yeah,
but that's how I name.
Yeah, definitely. There's been a movement, and I think something real positive about the movement we've seen with all the ghost shows, and I love that there's a lot of people out there investigating paranormal. I think it says something to our overall psyche and the psyche of the American people, but also going on in UK, it's going on in Canada, it's going on in Mexico, it's going on around the world. So really the psyche of the humankind is saying there's so much more out there than meets the eye, and now we're going to explore it. We're not just going to stick with what we've been told by certain institutions or groups or sects. We're going to explore what we're learning on our own. And I love that everybody can have an opportunity to do that. And then it's new ground. And so I think that the resurgence of Ouija, and of course, the Ouija movie's coming out in October, a brand new Ouija movie that Hollywood did, and it's a scary movie. It's not really positive about the Ouija, but yet it's still about the Ouija. And we haven't seen a movie like this in a long time, other than Ouija just being like Witchboard. That was a while back. But so what's happening is people are going, there's so much more to life. there's more to my life, and people are exploring what happens when we die, and is there other consciousness out there? Are there extraterrestrials? And if so, can I communicate with them? And I think we're finding that people are making a big stretch of their psyche and also with their consciousness. And this is what the cool thing about all this is to me. When people even call in and ask questions about the board, or I hear shows such as your show, and you learn that people are very interested in growing in their own development of understanding possibilities. That, to me, says a lot about human spirit and where we're going. We're going to a place of, I believe, where we're going to learn to rely on ourselves more and not just trust what's been told to us, and do it through experience and, trial and error. And I think if we can listen to some people that have worked with some of these tools or these concepts, or we can learn from them and not reinvent the wheel. So I'm all for the big development of paranormal activity, if you will, and people's interests. I'm all for that.
The TV shows have kind of fucked it up a little bit, but
some of them have, yeah.
But it's all good. It is what it is. Hey, there may be another TV show in the future that winds up accurately portraying a real investigation, and that'll be fucking awesome.
It will be. It's going to be the most fucking amazing show that ever came out. I know it. I am waiting for that show.
And it will be awesome.
And some other awesome person will hold down Jason's radio show.
Someone will hold down this radio show and say, you know what, the Paranormal Rebel is on vacation, and it's going to be the Paranormal Deviant in the house talking.
It's going to be the Paranormal Diva in the house.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah, see, Karen likes that, and I like Karen. So.
I love Karen. Are you kidding? Karen and I are on Facebook. We're going to be very good friends. Absolutely. I am dying to know, Karen. I want to know. I know that this is covering a huge gamut and a lot to ask, but I want to know if you could just pick like a couple of your most profound experiences. Using your board, like the most profound experiences, and I don't want to take away from your book at all because, of course, I'm going to have it, and I know that a lot of our listeners are definitely going to go out and get it. So I'm
definitely going to check it out.
Oh, my God.
And if you
I'm getting
into the more the experiences either.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you some stories that just blew my socks off. And I'm gonna tell you a story. I don't mind sharing it. It's in my book, so you'll get it more in detail, and I'll try to do it in brevity. But sometimes it's hard because this story I'm going to tell you is probably, I've had many profound ones, but this one is the one that really made me look at this tool, this device, this Ouija board as something beyond just talking to dead people. And I saw the inherent value of how this could be used for healing. Before I go into the story, I just let your listeners know that for a decade, I was a private practice psychotherapist. And during my practice, I pretty much didn't talk about the Ouija board too much, although I still was using it. But I kind of went underground with some of that stuff. But I had a lot of experience with really bizarre diagnoses and issues with people, such as multiple personality disorder, and also, which is now known as dissociative identity disorder, and also post-traumatic stress disorder. So I totally understand about how the body has a certain memory to it and how this memory can be recalled through time and space. And let me give an example, and then I'll tell you why I'm telling you this. For example, I had multiple personality clients who, when they relive or remember what happened to them as a child, all of a sudden, for example, they'll have welts come up on their arm where their father put the cigarette butt out on her arm or something, or their eye color will change. The body is really phenomenal in how it holds memories. And when we don't have an opportunity sometimes to release those, express them, to understand them, life can be really difficult. And so let me go into I'm explaining this so you know that I come from a point of therapy and why I'm going to tell you the story and how I saw the value of Ouija being very therapeutic. Okay, so the story goes like this. I'm in college. I was in a sorority. I took my board. We to college.
This is more of an...
Oh, no.
Oh, no. And you even like this one, too, because it was a bunch of Catholic girls.
Was there a panty raid? Was there a panty raid? Because Jason has to know.
Actually, I don't know if there was white cotton panties. I want to know.
I think all my stories involve a Catholic girl somewhere, so I'll put the Catholic girls in there. We were at the sorority, and what happened was, this is really cool because a lot of people ask me if I ever have done this before, like did Ouija blindfolded, and I have. So what happened was I was doing it all the time with one of my friends at the sorority house, really showing the girls that this works. I was in the stage of, I'm going to prove that this works, okay? I don't do that anymore. I don't even care anymore. I don't care if people believe me or not. I know the results. Then I wanted to prove it. And it was like, wow, watch this. This is really cool. We can learn things. Okay, I had this girls come into the chapter room. Several of them were Catholic. They thought I was doing bad things, and I said, let me show you. Come, please, come watch. I said, I'm going to blindfold myself, and so will my partner. We will put our hands on a planchette. We cannot see what it's doing. We're spelling. Plus, we were using a board that was a larger board from the 1950s. My board's a lot smaller from the 70s. We used my girlfriend's board. I had another person write, and we put our hands on the board, blindfolded ourselves, and that planchette, no, as soon as we started, just said, I welcome you to the circle. Please bring a message forward. And it flew around that board with our hands on it so fast I could hardly keep up with it. All of a sudden I hear a whimpering. I keep my blindfold on and just say out loud, can we continue? And the gal said yes. We kept going on, and all of a sudden the planchette stopped. I said, please read the message. And I don't know what it said. I don't know what it spelled. I can't figure it out. I just know it went quick, and it was weird energy. I have the friend read it out, and the friend read it. Basically, here's the story goes like this. I don't say people's names. I'll say so-and-so because I keep people's privacy. And the book I'm changing. Yeah. So-and-so, this is your sister. I'm here to tell you a message for you, Mom, Dad, and our other sister, that I am okay. When that car wreck happened, I died immediately. I felt no pain. My boyfriend is here, too. He also felt no pain. We love you. We're around you. We'll be with you forever. Please know that the only pain we feel to this moment is the pain that you guys feel when you think of us. Please have love in your heart. Feel that pain anymore. Know that we are at peace. We will be together again. And please tell Mom and Dad I love them, and I will see you. And I swear to God, I read the message. Even right now, I got chills.
Oh, my God. I got chills.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was. Now, remember, I was blindfolded. My partner was too. And I looked up. I go, you have a dead sister? Here we go again. Here's the dead sister. Sorry. I started this way on the board at the age of 8. Here I am, age 21. And there's another dead sister. I didn't even know she had a sister who died. It happened like 4 or 5 years earlier. I didn't know this gal that well, but maybe a year. She never talked about her dead sister, and she broke down sobbing so uncontrollably. You know that kind where you sound the ugly cry? You can't stop. Not one of us in the room had dry eyes, and nobody said a word, and I finally broke the silence and said, oh, my God, you guys, this is a very important tool. I said, all I can say is if you got this kind of release and we all can feel you having this release, this burden off your back, she says, oh, my God, Karen, I've always wondered she was okay. I'm so happy to hear that. I can't wait for my parents. And I said, then I see the seriousness of this tool. I said, at this point going forward, my life has changed, and I will always use this tool under reverence, respect, and no jokes, no playing games, and really being direct in what I'm doing with the board. That changed my whole plight. That changed my whole honesty on this board, this that we call the Ouija board. And I'll tell you, some of those girls left that room, never spoke of it again. Some of them whispered to me in quiet. And one gal even wrote in my book. I have a section of my book at the very end, people I've worked with over the years, who wrote letters to me, and I put it in the book. And one of the gals from that session is in there, and she talks about that session a little bit and her experience from it, that it profoundly changed my life. Now, that's a big story. I mean, that was really what got me to look at the therapeutic value. When I say therapy, I'm not doing therapy on a board, but just how important to release these feelings we have inside, or they store up in us, they become stress and disease. And Leslie, through the gal, she felt so troubled by this all these years that it really changed her. She went home and told her family.
Okay, guys, you're live.
This is what I was going to ask. Back in your Catholic school college days,
I did hear her say. I heard her say, Jason, that she was a bad Catholic school girl.
Oh yeah.
Get out of here! You said that.
She did.
Well,
in the sorority.
You know what they say about Catholic girls and their Ouija boards.
Nice.
Oh, I know what they say.
Right. You and I know. It's our secret.
Mm-hmm.
We all need to get a nice party going on. That's all I'm saying. That's it.
I'll never
I'm taking
tell.
a sandwich somewhere.
I know what kind of sandwich you want.
Oh, my God. She's going to get off the air, and I'm going to wind up getting a message from her and say, Jason, please see me immediately, not for spiritual help, but for psychiatric help.
Right. I could give you a prescription for that.
It's all good. Now, actually, how long have you been a psychotherapist?
Gosh, since '89.
Oh, wow.
That's a long time.
For many, many, many years. And right now, I'm currently not practicing, although I keep all my licenses. I shouldn't say I'm not practicing in a technical sense, although I use it all the time in my businesses. So, and I use it in my books. My books are really about, and even the Ouija book, it's really about how to develop your inner being, how to develop that connection to your divine self, so you can affect great change in your life and affect great evolution and have wonderful things happen. I mean, things in life are ups and downs, but how we approach them is how we can move beyond, and how we can actually find more joy in our lives. So the purpose of my books and my writing is really based on a lot around that story you just heard me talk about, how if we can just learn to be open to the possibilities, which those girls were that day in that room, even the Catholic gals, they were all very open to what I was doing. That profound messages could come through. We can learn incredible things about ourselves and about the healing power of our spirit, the human spirit, and how it transcends time and goes beyond. And knowing that, it allows us to realize that we truly are divine beings that continue on, and that we never really have an ending. And therefore, there's this sense of wiseness or wisdom within ourselves that we can really learn to tap into and use, because ultimately we're really connected to the divine source. We really aren't separate from it. And this work has taught me that. This work has truly taught me that, doing the Ouija board as well as some other types of work I do.
Well, let's go through some of the tips. I mean, for the beginner Ouija board, considering we're down to the last half hour and I have a few more questions, but let's just go through, the tips of actually utilizing a Ouija board for someone who's never used one, so that we can get that extremely clear out to people.
Like those 13 steps, the 13 steps that you were talking about.
Okay. Well, and basically 13 steps, we're starting to get into them a little bit earlier. You want to always, again, set your space, set your intention. Light the candle, burn the incense. Come to the table with the board, or come to the place where you're going to use the board as if it is a sacred space. I mean, people that are shamans, people that are hypnotherapists, people that are card readers, people that read tea leaves, they all have a certain approach to it that allows them to get into that space to activate that energy. And that's what I'm helping you do in this book. And I'm giving you simple ways to do it in the book, such as lighting a candle or burning sage, and then of course saying the prayer, holding the hands, while you say the prayer, create the circuitry, the connection between your partner. You open up the energy, you have your intentions, and then the most important thing along this is to ask open-ended questions again. I can't stress that enough. Don't ask yes and no questions because you're going to get nowhere. And to have patience, because it takes a lot of energy for them to come through, and your energy to be able to allow the planchette to move and spell. And I could tell you, when I start with somebody new on the board, it might take anywhere from 2 to 3 months of using it once a week for an hour and a half to 2 hour sessions before we really get beyond some of the gibberish. Sometimes it happens in a matter of a few sessions, but it could even take 6 months. So I'm just saying you've got to have patience. And when you have patience, you're really learning that, or you're teaching the energies you're going to communicate with, that you're going to respect them and have patience for them, and that it's not an easy thing for them to do. And this isn't easy for you to do either. And along the way, a beginner's learning to allow and to open to this. And those words are so overused. But yet you start to feel this subtle energy of allowing the planchette to move underneath your fingers. And if you have a partner with you, and I don't recommend you do it with a partner, you both can learn to trust the movement so you don't think you're pushing it. And you'll go stages of belief where you just relax lightly, and you're learning to relax as the spirits are learning to move it. You're kind of all learning together. And if you can remember that when you're using the board, it really helps you get through this awkwardness of using the planchette. And then once you're using it, allowing them to spell, again, at the end, always say thank you. Always have an appreciation to the time you spent on the board. Burn out your candle, blow out your candle, burn out your incense, and then put the board away. Put your tool away, respect it, put it back in its box or a nice sack or whatever, however you keep it in a drawer. Put it away, walk away from the space, and return back to real life. When I say real life, return back to your here and now. Return back to return to life. What were you going to say, Jason?
I hear put it away a lot.
Yeah, put it away. Listen, I have boards I keep out, like I said, but the main tool, the one I use all the time, is special to me, and I don't even want a lot of people touching it, to be honest with you. It might be own position, but it's special to me, and it's just not a game. It's not a game. So I don't treat it like a game. I put it back in a certain sleeve. I keep it in a certain drawer. But I travel with my boards, by the way. I travel. I have the little small glow-in-the-dark board. I put it in my suitcase. It'll travel with me. Or I'll create a Ouija board on a paper stack. I'll write out the numbers and turn over a dish or a double-fashioned glass, and away we go, communicating with the spirits anywhere, at any time.
Now, what are the chances of someone actually encountering a negative spirit?
Well, the chances are really good if you get on there and you aren't prepared. You get on there and you just invite, talk to me, anybody, please, who's there? Who are you? Is this house haunted? Come talk to me. You're opening yourself to anybody, anything. I always think it's best for the beginner to start with talking to a loved one who died or find out who your angel is, talking to your angel, and allowing consistency over time and messages to begin to develop a relationship. You will bounce into every now and then something negative. I got to tell you, I don't get that anymore, but over the years I had, and I write about it in my book. I give you examples of some more negative energies. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they're stuck in their earthbound personality, and in that personality they were upset, angry, lost, hurt, maimed, tortured, etc., and they're not happy, and they still want to be bothered, and the fact they're seen sometimes, and they don't even know they're dead sometimes. So it's like that can come through, and if you're not prepared for that, oh my goodness, you're going to be pulled off. Then it's not a good idea.
Well, what do you think makes a spirit want to stay here on this realm of existence?
Well, I think there's many, many reasons, but some of the reasons I've been told, and I've read about this in my book too. I think you're asking some incredible, great questions. What I've been told from the spirits I spoke with that word stuff, I use that word. That's probably an incorrect word to use. They say that they had unfinished business of some type. There's a message to be given, or they are so attached to something that happened in their life. Okay, for example, I ran into a spirit in Mexico, the one who spoke to me in Spanish. I literally saw her in my hotel room. I started communicating with her immediately, and she spoke to me in Spanish. But then I asked the staff at the hotel about this, if they saw any kind of woman ghost walking the property. They said, oh, but yes, we have. And I said, does she have like puffy white sleeves, Victorian type dress, wears a high collar, her hair pulled up in a beautiful comb, a dark, looks Spanish looking, like from Spain? And they said, oh my God, that's what they see on walking the beach at night. And I said, well, she's in my room. Fantasma está en la puerta esta noche. I basically said the ghost was in my room this night. And they went, what? Freaked them out. Well, this spirit was not a bad spirit, but she was lost and stuck. She was looking for her daughter, who was taken away from her and was raped and killed at the hands of her husband.
Oh, my God.
Horrible stuff. She was in pain. And so she walked the beach for over 100 years looking for her daughter. She threw herself on the beach and committed suicide. So I was dealing here with a ghost who committed suicide when she was alive. Because she lost her daughter, she found it was from the horrific death of her husband killing the daughter, raping the kid and killing the daughter. And the daughter was also on the property, causing havoc, knocking things around. People saw a little girl run through the restaurant early in the morning sometimes. And this is an old adult, it's 16 years and older hotel. You can't be there if you're young. This child was like about, I think, 7 or 8. When she died, little girl, and the mother was walking the beach looking for her, and they both were existing kind of in different realms, but yet in the spiritual place somewhere, but they weren't seeing each other, they weren't finding each other, because they both were stuck. The little girl stuck in her pain of the horrible abuse she suffered, and the priestess named, the mother, is stuck in the pain of longing for her daughter to find her. And here they've been doing it for over 100 years, and I was able to bring them together. And I won't go through the whole story, but there was a nice ending to the story. But yet it wasn't my agenda; it was their agenda. And they didn't want to go into the light. They were so happy to find each other, and they didn't go into the light until much later. And I want to understand this: that when you talk to spirits. Just because I'm in Mexico talking to spirit doesn't mean I can't be like back in California where I live and talking to the same spirit. By the way, I did talk to that spirit from Mexico. They were existing in the spiritual realm when they finally brought her and her daughter together, but they came to me in California and spoke to me another time, about 4 or 5 months later. And that's when they were finally able to go into the light and be reunited forever with the rest of their family. But what I find is, like, I've been invited to do some high-profile paranormal cases of hauntings, and what's happened is I can communicate, if I have permission, I can communicate with the spirits before even going into that house, and they'll come to me on the board if I ask for them. And so and I find that even the ones that they say are negative or bad or all this stuff, I find that they have a story to tell. They may tell it to me angrily. They may tell it to me in rushed words. They may tell it to me cussing. I'm okay with that. I'm not afraid, and I always, if they're done, they don't talk to me. I say thank you very much. I won't bother you. And I find that I get through more and more information, and I approach it that way. Again, it kind of goes back to Jody. We were talking about having respect and having respect, for these spirits when we talk to them. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah.
What types of buildings do you find that has more hauntings in it rather than, well, what types of buildings do you typically would commonly find that would have more hauntings? That's it.
Well, I've found that when, somebody's died there in the house kind of thing, or there was a death, a gruesome, horrific death, such as what I found in Mexico on that property. There's a high-profile one. I won't tell. I won't give that one away. And it's I actually wrote about it in my book. It's a big one in L.A., but I was able to talk to the spirits there, and they were very generous with me and their comments. And they're there because they have a message, but they were killed most gruesomely. And so things like that, or that they're stuck with they die, and they are stuck with their lover, and they don't want to let that lover go, or somebody's holding on to the spirit. I find, too, that I've been told when they pass over, and sometimes the spirits will hang around to be with their loved ones. They want to give a message, or they just want to comfort them in some way. And now I'm talking about spirit people that die that really aren't stuck. They're just staying around to maybe watch out after that grandson, or take care of their daughter as she grows up, and they eventually do leave. And I've spoken to quite a few that are at that phase to leave, or they have already left. But they'll stick around because they have a tie to the family, and and there's nothing there's nothing malevolent about it. It's all benevolent, and they'll be around at the funeral or their memorial service. And it's like this woman who had her sister who was killed in that car wreck I told you about when we were blindfolded talking to her. She's not moving on into another experience. Her soul, her spirit has chosen to stay on in the spirit realm and be around the family. And that's what their contract with their souls have decided to do. And so it's not a haunting. But she's around. Her spirit's with them, and it's there's many different ways. But the hauntings, a lot of them tend to be stuck in the pattern of repeating a behavior over and over again, such as Teresa in Mexico, who was walking the beach all the time at night. Run into her. She was repeating the same behavior, and she just so happened to walk. My room is not far from the beach. She just happened to walk to my room where I was sleeping. Didn't even know she was in a building. She's just walking. She's doing her path that she's done over 100 years now in our time, over and over and over and over again, night after night after night. And once in a while, people see her, and once in a while, like me, she bumps into somebody. So it's really quite amazing to me how this all works. We don't have all the answers. We don't. And I think I learned one thing.
No. Now, here's a very good question. Have you ever used your talents of being a psychiatrist on the spirits itself? Have you ever, sat down and had a therapy session with them just to try to coach them?
Yes,
love that question.
Nobody has ever asked me that question. I want to say I have done therapy on the spirits before because they've asked me to. They've found me. I've had them find me and say, where am I? Where am I lost? And then I help them either, like Teresa, unite them, or one spirit that was very, very, very angry. It's been written about in my book, how I helped them to get in touch with that anger. This is bizarre stuff I'm talking about, and I know it sounds bizarre, and people call it maybe spirit releasement and all this stuff. And it's not that I'm choosing to put my agenda on these spirits, that I need to release the spirits from the house or something. It's when they come and they ask me, just like in a therapy session, if somebody came to me in my practice and said, this is the issue I want to work on, I'm not there to say, well, you need to work on this and work on this, is what you need to do. I'm there to help them develop that themselves and to find out what they want to work on and what makes sense, and to help hone them into that so they can become empowered through that process of working on themselves, so they can do it for themselves. And same with the spirits, that if they're stuck and they need my help and they ask for it, then I definitely step in and work with them. And I've had quite a few come through like that. And I give several instances of that in my book. And I talk about how I've done some spirit releasement, such as the one with Teresa and a few others. But that's a great question. Nobody's ever asked that.
Well, and don't you find sometimes with that, because even when I'm talking to spirits or when I'm having to clear spirits out of a home or, something of that nature, don't you think that sometimes they just need to have a conversation, that they died so quickly that there are things that they just didn't get to say or that they just don't understand, and that's why they haven't moved on?
Exactly. And once they get the chance to make that message heard, and that's a lot of times when they know it's time to go. They're finally heard. In fact, I know this one haunting in L.A. I was telling you about, the high-profile one. They're not going to leave until the message is told, and I tell you what the message is in the book. I give the message, but the message the people that know the message are not getting it out, like these spirits want it to be out there, and so they're going to stick around until that message is heard. So it's fascinating. There's so many reasons why a place might be haunted. But overall, there's some kind of attachment. There's an attachment that stays with that spirit as they die. And sometimes, even when a person dies of a sudden death, like let's say a car wreck, like I talk about that gal, sister who died in a car wreck and her friend, there's always other spirits on the other side to help them cross over. And in fact, Healing Spirit is one of those spirits that I work with that helps people cross over when they die. So he comes through and tells me a lot of what happens and how they really never do feel pain. Although on this side, when somebody's dying, you may see the person experiencing pain, but once they hit that level of crossing over, whatever that critical mass mark is, they don't feel any pain. And they have to be there to help them through the transition. And sometimes the transition may take months or years in human time, live human time, people time, our this realm, this world time, or in their time it might just be a matter of seconds. But they have souls over there to help them to work through any of those issues. And sometimes when they go over and they don't want to go to life, it's because of the attachment they still have to the physical realm is when I find they become earthbound spirits, and usually because the poltergeists and the hauntings we see in these homes or even on the land. I mean, like this woman, Teresa, walked in the beach. You know, she just happened to walk into the building. A lot of times they don't even see the building. They don't see the buildings. I had one spirit cry out to me. He came through a session. I was working with my brother, who does the board with me really, really well, and he was visiting me not too long ago. This was just a couple of years ago, and a spirit through and said, I'm lost. Where am I? And he came through because he saw the light. When you do the Ouija board, you set a light. In the darkness if people are in darkness, they'll see a light. It's like moths to a light, and they'll go to it. And so you'll get all kinds of beings trying to come through, and then you have to have bouncers that kind of help navigate that, or I should say host the session. So you don't get all these spirits coming through. And in my book, I talk about how to do that, too, by the way. So you don't have, like many, many spirits coming through at once. Well, this spirit came through, and I said, okay, what is it? Where are you? He kept repeating, I'm lost, help me, where am I? He said, he gave me an address, gave me a full, and this is in the book, by the way, you can even validate the address yourself. Gave me an address, the city, state, and we went and looked for this address. We went and found it. We drove in my car, it wasn't too far from where I live, the next day, found the address, and sure enough, it was a funeral home. He never knew he was in a funeral home because I'm in this dark place, and I don't know where I am, and I've been here for he knew how long. He died of a gunshot wound. He said, I can't get out of here. I need help. And he was so in not seeing the light, but it was always there. He finally saw the light we created with the board as we talked to him. And when we checked out the area, we went, oh, my God, we go right back to the house, get on the board. I talked to him again. I said, okay, I know where you are. I said, follow my voice. Go outside. I told him, walk about 50 yards, and he didn't know where it was. Walk 50 yards north and look, and you're going to see, because I can see the address. I go, now look to the left, and there's a sign. What was funny is where his location was, what he could see or what he could experience was the address on the building, but the building signed to a funeral home was on the side of the building. He never looked to the side. I said, now look to the side. He goes, oh, my God, I'm dead. I said, yes.
Wow.
And so he asked for help because what can I do? And I had my angel come through, Mary Angel. I talk about her in the book a lot too, and how she's helped me with some of these releasements or these going into light, and she helped work him into light. And I give you the whole session there of who said what he said, and you can read through it verbatim. It wasn't a very long session, but it's just an example.
Community.
Excuse me?
Yeah. That sounds like the paranormal community.
Yeah.
It does. I was gonna mention, to what you're saying, there are times when a lot of spirits can come through, and of course they're very attracted to you because you are a channel and you're very open, and they know that you know that they're there. And like Jason said, nowadays, everyone's a psychic, right? But for those of us who really are sensitive, or perhaps for someone who's new to Ouija who may actually be a sensitive, who may not be ready for that to happen, all of a sudden that happens. What would you say to that person?
Well, I talk about this in my book, and I give you warnings in the book, too, about this. And when this happens, I say don't try to do any of this work unless, seriously, you've got practice doing it or you've been trained. I wouldn't do it unless I was a therapist, to be honest with you, because I'm messing with, I don't know if you want to call it that. I'm working. These are people that used to live. These are spirits. I wholeheartedly believe that. And I don't want to complicate what they're here to do. But I listen to them, I hear their story, and if they ask for help, I'm willing to help with the best I can. But listen, I don't do it on my own. I pull in my guides. So when you start using the board, develop your, as I said earlier, really develop your spirit friends is what I call them lovingly. On the other side, your angels, your ethereal beings, maybe it's your grandfather, your grandmother. Develop those relationships first. Talk to them, get to know them. They will help guide you when you're in sessions where weird things could happen, that they'll help you be protected. You need this group of helpers. I mean, you need this group of helpers surrounding you, and we're much stronger doing this work for having them. And I know, Jody, you know this because you're doing all this spiritual work yourself. You have your group of helpers, don't you?
I have 3 spirit guides that have been with me my entire life, and different. I have 3. And I know everybody has a different number of guides that are with them at different times during their life, but I've always had 3. They've always been with me, and, one of them is the dominant one that talks to me all the time, and I'm sure that you have a similar, type of experience.
Absolutely. And I love that because we all do have, whether you think you're alone, you Trust me, you're not. On the other side, you have all kinds of helpers out there, and all you have to do is open up and ask. And I say, don't do that unless, no, I don't want to say don't do that. I don't want to scare. The last thing I want to do is scare anybody. I say, be open, but also, respect that space, respect yourself. Practice I always say this, have a spiritual practice in place. And what that means is, and what that can look like to you, is maybe you meditate. Maybe you do journaling. A time when you're reflective, when you're with yourself, and you really get to know who you are inside. So who you are inside, meaning your feelings, is the barometer to guide you through your life. And being able to trust your feelings when things don't feel right, that is the true key to your success to navigate through life. And this means, like, if you're dealing with, you're talking with spirits on your side, learning to trust that barometer. This doesn't feel good, or let's say you're walking down a dark alley, something's not right here, I need to get to safety. Trust those feelings. They're there for a reason. They are there to protect you. And so as you begin to develop that more and more, which becomes a spiritual practice to develop this, being in touch with yourself internally, then you are much better at doing this work externally, whether it's, through using the board or any kind of other divination tool or communication device. Because then you're valuing yourself, you're valuing the communication, and you're learning to trust yourself. Not trusting the message, you're learning to trust yourself as you receive the message of what makes sense. And so once again, they will come here to help you, and do ask for their help. All you got to do is ask for your angels' help, and they will reach out to you, and they'll come to you in various ways and be open to the ways they'll come. And you will recognize more and more as you begin to know who you are inside, because that's going to allow you to recognize these beings there. And I will say this, too. Angels will come to you a lot of times as animals. They will come to you as a maybe butterfly or bird. I've had them come.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all signs, symbols, they're around you. So when you have a practice in place, a spiritual practice, begin to be more sensitive, and through that sensitivity, begin to understand your connection back and how to work with these things, how to work with the board in very safe ways. So I always say, have a good practice in place when you do any kind of spiritual work and communication with the other side in other realms.
Excellent. We are actually down to the last 3 minutes of the show, and we have a lot of information to come out, starting with a guest of honor. We want to know how people can contact you, buy your books, any upcoming books you may have, events you got going on. If they need psychotherapy, how can they contact you? All your
website.
Well, I want to say it's been such a pleasure, Jason and Jody. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a delightful format, and I appreciate the time and the conversations we shared. And you can reach me on my website. It's basically everything I do, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, etc. It's all under Karen A. Dahlman. Last name is spelled Dahlman. And you can find me on my website at KarenADahlman.com. I talk about my upcoming books. I have both my books there. The first 2 books I wrote that are autographed copies if you want to buy them there. I have links back to Amazon. You can find me on Amazon, too, a Kindle and paperback version of the books, and you can read about what it's called. But you can find me anywhere online under Karen A. Dahlman. And thank you guys again so much. It's been a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
It's been
and
a
what about
pleasure.
you, Jody?
What
about you? In the Paranormal Diva now?
Paranormal Diva can be found on Twitter, Pinterest, and Facebook and Skype under Johauntz, JOHAUNTS, or Jody Smith. That's JODIESMITH.
Nice. And again, everyone. Yeah, definitely got to look up Jody. Why not? She's got some nice measurements. I'm telling you, when you see the pictures, you'll be like, oh, that lucky motherfucker gets to chat with me every week. If anyone wants to contact me, look up Jason Stanton on Facebook. You can go to the Ghost Chat Radio fan page. Definitely like that page. I try to stay up to date on everything. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm all over the place. If you just Google Ghost Chat Radio, I'll pop up in like 4 pages. So pick a site. I'll get an email. I'll read it, and we'll go from there. I'm always looking for cool guests, too. So if you want to be a guest, don't feel free to contact myself or Jody, and we will definitely get you on the air. Go to Amazon, pick up my book, Unrested Peace. It's available for Kindle and paperback. I know you'll like it. And it's It's not as good as Karen's, but, I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy it. So definitely check into that. And until Monday night, everyone, right here at the same bat time, and 6 to 8 bat time, same bat channel. I will talk to you later. And the Rebel and the Diva are fucking out.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Later.